I'm going to be very straight about the way this evening went. It didn't go as we wanted or as we planned. We arrived for this evening, round number 2, in a very strong position, having finished P4 in round 1. If anybody watches that video, really we should have been P2 or P3 on the podium, but Oscar was pushed out wide at the beginning of the third and final heat, and that pushed him down from P4 to P12, back of the grid. He had to fight his way back and so on, and missed out on a podium by 1 point. That's typical Oscar's luck, and if you look back to how Daytona Tamworth started back in January, it was a very similar story with Oscar wrongly, which Daytona did apologise for the following month, but wrongly being given a 3-position penalty for the A final on that day, and also having a position took off him for missing a single yellow light, which was hard to see, and it was round 1 on a new track. So his bad luck in Daytona meant he finished P4 in round 1. And in round 1 here, bad luck again, shunted out wide, pushed to the back of the grid, missed out on the podium by 1 point, and again finished P4. So Oscar was sort of having flashbacks after round 1 here at Mr Karting, and worried that it was going to go the same way that the Daytona did. And you look at how other events have gone that we've been involved in with kart selection at other tracks, you know, putting Oscar out of like the BIKC for example last year. It's been a tough journey for him, one of just bad luck over and over and over. So we went into this year hoping it would change. I even said it, I publicly announced it, that hopefully we'd leave all the bad luck in 2024, but here we are anyway. And things just seem to keep happening to make sure that Oscar just seems to keep just missing out through no fault of his own. So this is round 2. Round 1 was the end of July, round 2 this one was the end of August, and then round 3 is coming up at the end of September. As I said, we're sitting in P4 in the championships. So realistically we need a P3, P2, P1, we need a podium finish really in this heat, or at least P4 again, to give ourselves a good shot, you know, in the final round of landing a podium. However, that's not the case, that's not what's coming up. You'll see in the practice session that's on there now, when they came out for this first lap of the 5 laps practice, Oscar was squeezed into the barrier by the kart that's ahead of him now, just there on that section of track. And that basically is a precursor for what's coming up in the 3 heats that happened and took place on this night. So heat 1 wasn't too bad, although you see Oscar gets shunted and pushed aside, and then it got worse in heat 2, and the cherry on the cake was literally the last bend of the heat 3 race, and where he was pushed from either P2 or P3 to the back of the grid again, or being pushed into a barrier. So incredibly disappointing round this was, I'll say it now. Oscar finished P11 of the 12 races that were there on the evening. That prematurely ends our chances of a podium finish. I don't even think if Oscar finishes P1 at the end of September that's enough to get him into the top 3 of the championships. So it's written off for us now. Of course we're going to turn up, we're going to get more experience, and I keep saying it over and over again that these are the moments that we grow the most from, when things go wrong. But we need things to start going right, if you know what I mean. We need a bit of luck. I mean, Oscar's set track records, he's just done it again recently at Team Sport Birmingham, but when it comes down to actual racing, bumper to bumper, and the things that happen out on track, Oscar's exceptionally clean. He will wave people through if he thinks he's created too much contact. He's absolutely fantastic in that regard, but when things happen to him, he doesn't get waved through. People don't give him the same credit or whatever it's worth, you know what it is, that he gives them. So yeah, this was a tough lesson again, pushed back to the back of the grid and so on multiple times, but we keep going, it's what we do, we roll on. As you'll see on the replay, the kart ahead of Oscar in the blue and orange clips the inside of the tyre wall, which costs him a lot of his speed. That causes Oscar to give him a tap. Oscar really should have capitalised on that, as that was his driving error. So Oscar should now be trying to get ahead of him, but instead, Oscar being Oscar, he waves him back through. But that wasn't a shunt from Oscar, it wasn't dirty driving, it was a mistake from the kart ahead. Oscar now loses a position due to the kart at the back of this little pack here loading into the guy in the black suit, which pushes Oscar outwards, costing him a position. You've just seen Oscar wave somebody back through when he tapped into the back of them, although that wasn't his fault. This time he's been pushed wide. It's the karts behind him who are to blame for that, but Oscar doesn't get waved through himself. Oscar attempted to regain his position straight away with some good overspeed on the driver in black. He got side by side but then squeezed into the barrier just there and then shunted from the kart behind. This time he makes it stick. And then not as much as we wanted. Sometimes you have to take what you can get. So it's not quite the finishing position we wanted for the first heat, but 10 points in the bag and starting back of the grid in a 6-minute sprint race, it's never going to be easy. So at least Oscar's made up 3 positions and we move on to heat 2. This is heat number 2, Oscar starting P6. Squashed again. Stuck into that barrier. Throughout this whole section you're going to see now on slow motion, which was a total of 12.5 seconds in real time, Oscar managed to keep himself on the outside of a pack of karts going 3 wide. Even though he gets squeezed into the barrier the first time here and drops back several positions, he's still, as you can see, going 3 wide. It's quite miraculous how he's managed to do this. So he now has to hold it on the outside around the hairpin, goes around there, a kart comes up the inside, so he's still in a 3 wide situation on the outside again. And that of course is about to cost him now as he gets squeezed out onto the grass again. It is quite miraculous how he's managed this. I'm definitely going to be having words with him, and this is something that we've got to really work hard on because this track gives absolutely no prisoners. So going forwards with our experience on this event and also the final heat in round 1, I think our motto now is we need to be the meat in the sandwich, not the bread.
Every single barrier. We're in last place. But you got to fight now, dude. Early on, it's just looking like you got no pace.
More contact on the track, this time ahead of Oscar. Costs the driver there in the blue helmet some positions. Oscar makes the most of the opportunity to get past him, sees an opportunity and quickly dives up the inside of the driver ahead, now in the orange. He obviously didn't see Oscar coming. So yeah, really good little move there from Oscar to take back 2 positions.
Get the inside line out, right out. Defend the inside line. You've been loaded into the one in front of you. Not your fault. Into the barrier again, aren't you? Just here. Back into last position. Can't be absolutely sure, but Oscar will tell me when it comes off. 31.8 in the last race, and we didn't have as many clean laps as he's getting here, so we'll see. You're running out of time, to be honest, dude. You've got about a minute left. Oh, there you go. That's the end. 11th.
So yeah, that was a disaster for us to drop down from P6 to P11. It's pretty much night over now. We're going to have to see if we can make up for that in the final race. We should be starting P1. We don't understand how the computer system works with random starting positions, but we've had a back starting in the first heat in P12. We've had a middle start in the second heat with P6. So we thought we would have been in P1 for the third. But we're not. For the third heat, we're starting in P2. And we'll have to see how that works out for us. Again, and again, and again. You'll see.
This is the final. This is heat 3. Sorry. Oscar will be starting in P2. Let's see how he does. I've just lost my bench. Just got there before me. I'm not going to have the same viewing angle for this one. Well, I'm going to come over to another bench.
Oh, Ben, we don't have the cars behind them. I'll just get a picture of the car.
Here we go.
In both race starts, Oscar had done brilliantly here to get onto the inside to seal P2. You'll see him switch across now. That was something that we'd spoke about, in the week before this round. And then he was the victim of just multiple carts loading into each other behind him. Our friend Jaden there was the one who was up against the back of Oscar. You can see him raising his hand because he was being loaded into. And again, it leads to another race restart. Luckily, because Oscar lost around about 6 positions in all that.
Again, into the barriers. All 3 heats. Absolutely mauled in all 3 sessions so far tonight. Go get your P2 back.
So, third time lucky. We just need Oscar to repeat what he's done in the first 2 attempts to start this race and hold on to P2.
Now, can you get that P2 inside line back again?
Unfortunately, Oscar couldn't quite hold on to P2 this time from the start line, so we've dropped down into P4. It's just about consolidating the position now and seeing if we can move forward throughout the rest of the race.
Catching up behind you.
The drivers ahead are already battling, and we've got a nice comfortable gap behind us, so it's a great opportunity here for Oscar to fight for a top 3 finish come the end of this season.
Move, dude, they're catching you behind. Got the inside.
So what you're about to see now is very difficult to break down without the helmet cam footage, which we're not allowed on this track anymore. So as they come around this hairpin, the driver in the blue helmet ahead left the door wide open. The 2 drivers behind him in the white helmets followed through, and Oscar attempted to do the same, but as Oscar comes up behind him just now, Oscar gives him a little nudge there. Now we can't tell if he's pulled in front of Oscar or what's happened. What we do know is Oscar wasn't given a penalty for contact. There's a marshal there watching on. We carry on. And as you'll see later in this race, that leads to an incident which is basically what wrote the entire championship series off for Oscar.
There we go. And it's all over. Excellent battling, mate. And that was the last bend, right before the end of the race.
Yeah, so this was an incredibly frustrating way to end the night. Oscar had battled brilliantly throughout this third heat, after a couple of disappointing heats before it. And to hold on to the top three, and being P4 all the way through there with no real threat from behind him. To then get taken out this way on the last bend of the entire race. It's gone down as a retaliation takeout. So that driver there in the blue helmet for this moment was disqualified from the event. It's now meant that Oscar's points for the championship season have essentially ruled him out of any chance of a top three finish come the final round at the end of September. It's exceptionally disappointing. We'll see this over and over again. Oscar's luck never seems to fail him. But we'll be there at the end of September, of course. We'll give it a good try. We'll have a crack at getting onto the podium for the day. And then we'll start again for the Winter Series. First round, obviously, will be the end of October. And again, we can just take what we can from it, learn from it, grow from it, and move on.
Where are you? You're okay. You better not be hurt with everything we've got coming up now. You okay? You're right. Last bend.
So that's the end of a difficult night. Oscar finished P11 in the final heat, which puts him down into P12 overall for all three heats, on the tie break with another driver. So he was relegated to P12 on a tie break. The position-wise, he's standing in, I believe, P8 now in the championships. He's P7 or P8. I don't think even a first place position, to be honest with you, in the last round is going to be enough to get Oscar up onto the podium. But we'll give it our best try and we'll see what happens. So my advice after this is, if something happens to you on track that you feel's unfair, don't throw the rattle out the pram. Don't drive the other driver off the track. Forget about the retaliation and wait for the marshals to sort it out. Here at Mr Karting, they are really on top of the game. Things will get missed. Everything can't be monitored at the same time all across the track. But in most part, the marshals will get the decisions correct. If the driver had stayed on track and finished P4, he'd have finished much higher up the grid on this night than he did, getting disqualified. So best advice is to leave it to the marshals. Don't get retaliation on other drivers. So that'll bring this video to an end. A bit more experience in the bag, and I'm sick to death of saying that we'll learn from it, we'll move on. We will learn from it and we will move on, but hopefully we'll move on to a P1, P2, P3 in the next round. See you at the end of September.